This is a battle of the two best-selling multi-tools on the market today, the Leatherman Wave Plus and the Victorinox Spirit X. Two great multi-tools from two of the greatest brands. But which is best?
One small step for man, one giant leap for mankind.
Hi, welcome back to the channel. My name is Jonathan. Now, I am a huge fan of both of these brands, both Victorinox and Leatherman, and this is a really important comparison because these are the best-selling multi-tools from these brands and they compete head-to-head. So it's going to be really interesting to see if one is better than the other. Okay, so the Victorinox Spirit was introduced in 2004 and there have been numerous models since then. The Spirit X replaced the original version, swapping out a serrated blade with a drop point blade, which is more desirable, and also introducing scissors. There have been other versions which are also no longer available, including a model with single-handed knife opening and a version with a serrated blade and scissors, but they all seem to be disappearing. So the model that prevails is the Victorinox Spirit X, and that's what we have here. And then we have the Leatherman Wave. Now, the Leatherman Wave was introduced in 1998 and saw a major upgrade in 2004. And that upgrade included interior locking tools and some significant tool changes, including the addition of a bit driver. And then there was a minor upgrade in 2018 when the Plier head received replaceable cutters and a slightly modified shape. Both knives are made out of high quality stainless steel. The Leatherman uses 420 HC, standing for high carbon, and the Victorinox also uses a high carbon steel with a high level of chromium. Both of these knives are extremely resistant to corrosion. The Victorinox elects to go with a highly polished finish, and the Leatherman has a brushed finish. The Victorinox has a cleaner design, whereas the Leatherman looks more complex and, you might argue, more interesting. Other things to note is that the Leatherman Wave has single-handed opening for its two main blades, and that can be really useful if you are up a ladder hanging onto a rung with the other hand, or your other hand is holding something and you need to deploy one of these blades single-handedly. Then that is a real bonus. However, in some countries, Germany for example, then a single-handed opening knife is illegal to carry. Having said that, both of these knives employ locking blades, which makes it illegal to carry in the UK and some other countries without good reason. And it's worth pointing out that all the tools with the Victorinox are accessible from the outside, and that is a real plus. The Leatherman Wave has 4 external accessible tools, but to get at the rest of them you have to open up the tool. The Victorinox has 10 tools built in plus the Plier head, and the Leatherman has 9 tools built in plus the Plier head. Having said that, one of the tools in the Leatherman is the bit driver, and that has a reversible bit which gives you both flat head and Phillips. So they are actually very even when it comes to the number of tools. In terms of size and weight, the Victorinox is quite a bit thinner than the Leatherman, by about 3.5 mil, but the Leatherman is shorter than the Victorinox by about 5 mil. In terms of maximum width, they are both the same, but there is a weight difference. The Victorinox is 210 grams and the Leatherman is 243 grams, and you can really feel that difference in the handling. Both multi-tools come with a case. The Leatherman comes with a nylon case and the Victorinox comes with a leather case. So I guess it comes down to personal preference. For me, I actually like the look of the Leatherman and I prefer this press stud fastening to the Velcro, which can wear over time. But I'm also very keen to have something as compact and small as possible, and the Victorinox does sit better on the belt because it is narrower and it is shorter. Which it shouldn't be really, because the Leatherman multi-tool is actually 5 mil shorter than the Victorinox. But Leatherman have been a bit lazy in having one size of pouch And really, if they'd move that press stud down to there, then this one would look a bit shorter. But they don't. They have it up there and have a load of wasted space in there. And to me, that makes the Victorinox a better option because it carries better. Neither one is a deal maker or breaker for me. I think it's more down to personal preference. So in terms of pricing, they're both very comparable. In the UK, these are available for about £135, including tax. Tax is at 20% in the UK. In the US, both of these sell for around $100 plus tax. In terms of warranty, they're both pretty comparable. The Victorinox has a lifetime guarantee against defective workmanship, and the Leatherman has a 25-year guarantee, which is pretty similar because I wouldn't be knocking on the door of Leatherman asking for a new one after 25 years of hard use. So in terms of warranty, both pretty comparable. Okay, let's have a quick look at all the tools side by side. I'm going to come back to the plier head in a moment. So the Victorinox has scissors, a 2mm flathead screwdriver, a Phillips screwdriver for both 1 and 2 number Phillips. It also has a can opener with a 3mm flathead screwdriver, a file with both a rough and a smooth side, and also a metal saw. It also has a wood saw, which also copes with other materials like plastic, and a combination tool here, which is a flathead 6mm screwdriver with a cap lifter and a wire stripper stroke bender, and this is also a very useful pry tool. Here we have a bladed awl and a chisel tool, which also includes a large wire stripper and a small wire stripper, and then we have the main drop point blade. With the Leatherman, we have a serrated blade as well as a straight blade. The file has a traditional profile on the back, not too rough, but on this side we have a diamond file, which is really useful. We also have a can opener, stroke, wire stripper, and a bit driver, and that bit driver comes with a Phillips head and also a 5mm flathead. Here we have a 6mm flathead, which doubles up as a pry tool, and then we have a micro screwdriver, both Phillips and flathead, and scissors, and then again we have a wood saw, which again can cut other materials as well. So as you can see, a pretty similar tool set, but I want to get into a little bit more detail comparing some of these tools side by side. With both multi-tools, both the blades and all the other implements lock into place. With the Victorinox, all the blades and tools are accessible from the outside, which is great. And you simply open it up and it locks into place. To release it, you have these raised parts here, and you simply pull them back and it unlocks. So very simple to use and very effective. In the case of the Leatherman, the external tools lock with a liner lock, and to release the tool you simply press on it and fold it back. The internally accessible tools have a separate mechanism. Open the tool and it locks into place like that, and then to release it you simply press on one of these here, and then that releases it. So both very effective. The Victorinox is arguably a little bit more straightforward, having the single lock-in mechanism. The other thing to note when you're opening the pliers, they're both actually really comfortable to hold. The Victorinox follows this curve shape, which arguably makes it even more comfortable. They have a curved profile on the side here, so there's no pressure points when you're trying to grip it, which is nice. Although there is a little bit more chance of being nipped here if you slip, and you don't have that problem there. So just looking at the plier head, they are a very similar profile. They're both needle nose pliers. A few subtle differences. It's a little bit rougher here on the Leatherman than on the Victorinox. The Victorinox has more grip points here than the Leatherman, but the real difference is the fact that the Leatherman has replaceable wire cutters, because these cutters will wear over time. So in terms of the plier head, it's a win for the Leatherman. And let's now have a look at the main blade. The main blade on the Leatherman, you can clearly see, is much bigger in both length and depth than the Victorinox. So when it comes to the knives, let's do a quick paracord 550 test. They should both cut through this easily. And they both do. So they're both really capable knives. It's just that the Leatherman is so much more substantial than the Victorinox. So that's a definite win for the Leatherman on the main blade. With regard to the serrated blade on the Leatherman, then that is a clear win for the Leatherman because the Victorinox does not have a serrated blade. So this is useful for cutting fibrous materials. If you're trying to cut your way out of a seatbelt, this is the knife blade you want. And yes, so a win for Leatherman with regard to that blade. So then let's have a look at the file and compare those. Okay, the Leatherman file definitely has more depth to it, as you can see straight away, but the length of the file is actually slightly longer on the Victorinox. The big difference is the fact that the Leatherman file has a diamond file on this side, and that is really desirable for some people, whereas the Victorinox has a more traditional cross-cut profile, which is not too rough on that side, but very rough on that side. You can hardly move your finger on there. And then here, this is very rough here, and that is an effective metal cutter. This also has a rough edge here, but it's nowhere near as coarse as the one on the Victorinox. If the diamond file is important, then the Leatherman is the one. If on the other hand you want a more traditional file of smoother and rough with a more aggressive metal cutter, then the Victorinox is the one for you. Okay, let's now move on to the wood saw. And on first glance, it looks like the Leatherman has it again. The length of the saw is the same, but you can see the depth on the Leatherman saw is much greater, so that would point to greater strength. However, when you look at the thickness of the blade, it tells a different story. Let me show you. So the thickness of this saw blade on the Leatherman is 1mm, whereas on the Victorinox it's 1.5mm. So the thickness of the Victorinox is much greater than that on the Leatherman, and I think that outweighs the extra depth in the blade. The other thing about having a shallower depth profile on a blade like this is you have more control over it. So if you are trying to cut an inside profile, then you actually want a blade with a narrower depth because you can maneuver it more like a coping saw, if that makes sense. Okay, let's look at the large flathead on both tools. They're both 6mm flatheads, but the Victorinox also incorporates a cap lifter and a wire stripper stroke bender. In addition to that, it is significantly more substantial if you look at the thickness. So the Victorinox is a much thicker tool, and because this is used as a pry bar, imagine opening tins of paint. You could also pull nails out with this nick here if they're not too thick. Then this tool is stronger and has more functionality. So that is a clear win for the Victorinox with this tool. And then we're going to look at the chisel tool on the Victorinox. Now this is a clear win for the Victorinox because the Leatherman doesn't have a chisel tool. So if you've got any requirement to use a chisel, then this is a real bonus. It is super sharp. It not only has a chisel head on the front, but also on the side. In addition to that, it's got a large wire stripper and a small wire stripper. So this is a really useful tool and a clear win here for the Victorinox because it does not exist on the Leatherman. Okay, what else do we have? So you have here an awl with a sharp edge, which is really useful, I think, to have. And you also have this hook here. Don't know what it is about Victorinox and hooks, but the fact that they've included it here only adds to the functionality. This awl is a really useful tool, whether you are using it to create a pilot hole or using it as a scraping tool or using it as a drill. And a clear win for Victorinox because Leatherman don't include an awl in their tool. Okay, let's compare scissors. The scissors on the Leatherman are harder to get at, which is a little bit of a drawback with these internal tools. Okay, and the tools here are very different. The Leatherman actually feels quite flimsy compared to the Victorinox, which use a really thick steel here. Having said that, the Leatherman have wider opening jaws, so if you're trying to cut something that is quite wide, you will struggle with the Victorinox, whereas the Leatherman opens really wide. But in terms of strength, the Leatherman feels significantly more substantial. So here we have the 550 paracord test with the Leatherman, and that snips it fine, goes straight through it. So they are really sharp and really effective. In terms of the Victorinox, that does the same. You know, anything wider than that, you might start to struggle, but it snips it fine. So both of these scissors are actually really effective. In terms of which is better, well, unless you desperately need blades that open wide, the Victorinox is definitely a winner. The steel is much thicker and they look much stronger, and I much prefer the Victorinox scissors over the Leatherman scissors. On the Leatherman, we have the Eyeglass screwdriver, which has both a flathead and you can switch it round for a very tiny Phillips head. Now, I'm not a massive fan of this on the Leatherman Wave. This is a big, heavy tool, and I'm not sure I would want to get too close with anything that has this much precision. Very easy to damage whatever you are trying to screw or unscrew because of the torque involved. And that's my personal view. I think it's a bit of a waste of a slot. But this tool does not exist on the Victorinox. So if you are really keen to have a super tiny screwdriver on your multi-tool, then the Leatherman has that and the Victorinox doesn't. Okay, let's compare the can openers. Both can openers use a slightly different method. The Leatherman can opener operates by moving backwards, and the Victorinox can opener moves forwards when you open a can. What is different about these two is that they both have extra functionality. The Leatherman has a wire stripper here, and that would compare nicely with the wire stripper built into the chisel tool on the Victorinox. And the Victorinox has a 3mm flathead screwdriver on the end, which it does actually add an additional tool. So that will be a win for the Victorinox because it adds a 3mm flathead, which the Leatherman does not have. Then we come to the bit driver. And the bit driver on the Leatherman Wave is highly desirable. For a start, it makes one tool into two. So you've got a flathead and you've got a Phillips. But the real advantage of this is you can introduce many more bits into the equation. So here we have a load of bits, and you could carry this with this, and then all of a sudden you are adding loads more functionality to the Leatherman Wave. Having said that, with the Victorinox, you can also buy additional bits and a driver for the bit. So not quite as convenient with the driver built in. You can buy a separate ratchet driver or a manual driver with 1/4" bits. and that works really well as well. So for the purposes of this comparison, I'm not going to include any additional tools. As the basic multi-tool, how does this bit driver compare with the screwdriver bits in here? Well, let's have a look. So the multi-tool as it comes includes the double-ended bit, which is a 5mm flathead and a Phillips. To compare, the Victorinox has a Phillips driver which can work with number 1 and number 2 Phillips screws. And what you'll notice is that it is longer and it is thinner, so it can get into tighter places. It's also a very thick tool, so it's got a lot of strength to it. It's a 3-dimensional head, whereas the Leatherman is a little bit more 2-dimensional. It does work very well though. So just looking at the Phillips, it's a win for the Victorinox. Now, if we look at the flathead options here, we've got the 3mm on the can opener we've already looked at, but we've also got another flathead. Now this is a 2mm flathead on a long arm, and I guess we're comparing that with the 5mm on the Leatherman. Now I prefer the option on the Victorinox. We've got a 5mm on the Leatherman, but we've also got the 6mm flathead as one of the tools, so that is quite a close match. I would rather have the 6mm flathead we've got here, the 3mm on the can opener, and then we have a very long and very precision looking 2mm, and I think this is a really useful size, and because it's on a long arm, it's very functional as well. So I think when I compare the screwdriver options here, I would rather have these two than these two. So bearing that in mind, it's a win for the Victorinox for me, because we've got the longer length, and I would rather have the 2mm than the 5mm, bearing in mind both have already got a 6mm. So there you have it. That is a comparison of the tool sets, and now it's time to draw some conclusions. So let's quickly run through the benefits of each multi-tool, starting with the Leatherman Wave. So if these things are important to you, then the Leatherman Wave is for you. If replaceable wire cutters are important to you, then it's the Leatherman Wave. If single-handed opening is important, then it has to be the Leatherman Wave, and if you need a serrated blade, then it has to be the Leatherman Wave. The Leatherman Wave is the shortest, if that's important to you, but only by 5mm. The knife is a big win for the Leatherman Wave because it's more substantial. So if that's the main tool you are looking for on a multi-tool, then the Leatherman Wave is probably the one to go for. If your glasses are constantly falling apart, then maybe the Eyeglass screwdriver is what you need, which is in the Wave. And if you need a diamond file, then that's only available with the Wave. Now, there's one thing I forgot to point out, and that is the Wave has a rule built in. As you can see here, in both inches and centimeters. So if you need to make some quick measurements and you don't have a rule with you, then the Leatherman Wave offers some additional functionality. It's also worth pointing out that the Leatherman Wave has these security torques, which means with the right tool you can dismantle it for cleaning or for maintenance, whereas the Victorinox does not have accessible screws, and therefore you can't dismantle it yourself for maintenance, not easily anyway. And the Leatherman has actually one other feature which I've not mentioned, and that is a lanyard ring which is concealed underneath the saw blade. So there you have it, and I'm sure there's a lot of people with Leatherman Wave pluses that don't realise that that is there. So let's now look at the Victorinox and see what that has that the Leatherman doesn't have. Okay, well, the first thing to know with the Victorinox is the build quality. It is actually a step above Leatherman. And there has been talk recently about Leatherman's build quality not being always up to scratch. And you don't have to look very far to see stories of plier heads that are jammed and need working in. or tools that are loose. Now this example I've got here is actually working really well out of the box, but I have had Leathermans that don't. Victorinox, on the other hand, always is top quality. Something to do with Swiss engineering or Swiss precision, but the quality here is absolutely top notch. It feels really precision, almost jewelry like. Everything falls out with a click. Even the ply heads click into place, which doesn't really happen on these. These just sort of open. So the build quality on here is exceptional. It's so smooth and so well engineered. It is a step above. And I actually quite like this mirror finish. It does hold fingerprints really well, which is not ideal, but overall I actually like the simplicity of this design. It's also thinner and lighter, and that weight actually makes quite a big difference. Also, the fact that all the tools are accessible externally makes this really easy to use compared with some of the tools on the Leatherman. So although it doesn't have single-handed opening tools, which for many is disappointing, for some it's a bonus because, as I said before, in some countries it's illegal to have that. Where it misses out on single-handed opening tools, it gains on the fact that all the tools are externally accessible. So if I want the scissors here, they are ready to go. And if I want to put them away, it's easy to do. Compare that with the Leatherman, more stages to it. And you have to open it up, fold that over like that, and then put that away. So it just adds an extra level of complexity. Just knowing that everything is available on the outside is a win for Victorinox. The awl is a great tool and a real bonus as a scraping tool, as a drill, pilot hole creator. If you really like an awl, this is your only option. I wish Leatherman would replace the Eyeglass screwdriver with something like this awl. That would really make a difference, but if you want an awl, then it has to be the Victorinox. Then we have the Chisel. Again, this is a tool that doesn't appear on the Leatherman and is really useful. So if you want a chisel and you want that big wire stripper there, which will coat with thick cable, then again it is a win for the Victorinox. The flathead on the Victorinox is much more substantial, thicker, longer, a much better pry tool, and it's got a cap lifter and the wire bender stripper on it. So this tool is far superior to that on the Leatherman. So that's a real win for the Victorinox. Now, you don't get a diamond file on the Victorinox, but if you don't need that, you would probably appreciate this file here, which is really rough. So you can start with that, and that really works well, and then you've got a smoother file there. So if you want a diamond file, it's the Leatherman. If you want this option, it's the Victorinox. Plus you've got this very effective metal cutter here. You have one on the Leatherman, but it's not as effective as this. This is really sharp, if you like. This is really coarse. So that's a bit of a draw for me. The Leatherman gets the diamond file, the Victorinox gets the double file and the better metal saw. For me, the scissors are a win for the Victorinox as well, because they are much thicker and stronger. And Victorinox are well known for making great scissors. I also prefer, without adding additional tools, the Phillips on the Victorinox along with the 2mm flathead over the 2 screwdriver options in the bit driver on the Leatherman. So for me, that is another win for the Victorinox. Then we also have the addition of the 3mm flathead as part of the can opener, an additional tool for the Victorinox. So which is the winner? Well, to some extent that depends on what's important to you. There are some things that might be a deal breaker that will push you in one direction or the other. But for me, the things that are most important when comparing these two tools include the fit and finish and general build quality, and that is superior on the Victorinox, and that is very hard to resist. In addition to that, the fact that all the tools are externally accessible is a real win for me. The longer screwdrivers, better scissors, the chisel and the awl, taking those things into consideration, the winner, for me at least, for my purposes, is the Victorinox Spirit X. Although these are the best-selling multi-tools from both Leatherman and Victorinox, they are not the most capable. That title would go to the Victorinox Swiss tool and the Leatherman Surge. And if you want to know how they compare head-to-head, well, that head-to-head comparison is coming soon. So don't forget to subscribe to the channel and hit the notification bell if you want to be first to see that one when it's released. So there you have it. Thank you as always for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.